la Coordinación de Humanidades, el Instituto de Investigaciones Económicas y el Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía, les da la más cordial bienvenida al simposio Sinergias en ANSEA, Integración Digital, Acción Climática y Cadenas Globales de Valor. Como primer punto de este acto protocolario de inauguración, es para mí un honor presentar a Kamal Mamad, jefe de la División de Educación, Juventud y Deportes del Departamento de Comunidad Sociocultural de ANSEA, que nos acompaña de manera virtual y ha preparado unas palabras de bienvenida para este encuentro.
Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, partners from government, members of academia from ASEAN community and Mexico, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the symposium on synergies in ASEAN, digital integration, climate action, and global value chains. At the outset, I would like to commend the National Autonomous University of Mexico for convening this important symposium. Your leadership in fostering dialogue across regions reflects a strong commitment to advancing shared solutions to global challenges. This timely gathering brings together three defining priorities for our region: digital transformation, sustainability, and economic resilience at a moment when their convergence is both urgent and necessary. ASEAN represents one of the world's most dynamic and diverse regions with a strong commitment to advancing inclusive growth, regional integration, and sustainable development. ASEAN as an intergovernmental body composed of Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos PDR, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam, continue to strengthen its engagement with external partners. Mexico has emerged as an important partner in fostering interregional dialogue and cooperation. This growing engagement reflects our shared commitment to advancing digital transformation, climate action, and resilient economic development. Across Southeast Asia, the impacts of climate change are no longer abstract. They are immediate and intensifying. Climate-related hazards are becoming more frequent, severe, and unpredictable, with far-reaching consequences for our economies, communities, and developmental trajectories. The Asia-Pacific region continues to account for nearly half of global disaster events, and without decisive actions, economic losses could reach nearly 3% of regional GDP annually. In this context, it is important to recognize that these challenges are shared beyond ASEAN. Mexico faces similar vulnerabilities in terms of climate hazards. These shared exposures underscore the importance of strengthening interregional cooperation. ASEAN and Mexico can greatly benefit from exchanging best practices, lessons learned, and innovative approaches in climate adaptation and resilience building in the education sector. Beyond economic costs, the human impact is profound. Millions of learners across our regions have already experienced disruptions to education due to climate-related events. Schools often serve as safe spaces, and communities anchors are among the first to be affected during disasters. These disruptions disproportionately affect the most vulnerable, further widening existing inequalities. For this reason, we have convened an out-of-school children and youth working group that meets regularly to address these issues. In this context, education stands at the front line of the climate crisis, but is also one of the strongest instruments for resilience. By integrating climate literacy, sustainability, and green skills into curricula, and by strengthening systems for education in emergencies, we can ensure that learning continues even in times of crisis. At the same time, we can equip future generations with the knowledge, and competencies needed not only to adapt to environmental challenges, but also to actively contribute to mitigation efforts. It is equally important to recognize the central role of youth in advancing these efforts. With more than 1/3 of ASEAN's population comprising young people, they are not only beneficiaries of these policies, but also key drivers of innovation, advocacy, and community-based solutions. Empowering youth with digital skills and green competencies alongside opportunities for meaningful participation is essential to ensuring that ASEAN's climate and digital transitions are inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. This is reflected in the key outcome areas of the forthcoming Work Plan on Youth 2026 to 2030, which is strongly anchored in the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 and the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community Strategic Plan. This is where digital transformation plays a transformative role. Digital technologies can significantly enhance both climate mitigation and adaptation, enabling real-time data systems for disaster risk management, supporting continuity of learning through online and hybrid platforms, and expanding access to quality education across diverse geographies. Digital transformation also creates important opportunities to empower youth in advancing climate action and sustainable development. Strengthening youth digital literacy and fostering innovation are critical to enabling young people to develop and scale solutions that support climate resilience, disaster response, and sustainable livelihoods in an increasingly digital and climate-affected world. Harnessing these opportunities will be essential to ensuring that ASEAN digital and climate transitions are not only effective, but also inclusive and sustainable. Ladies and gentlemen, these priorities are clearly reflected in our regional commitments. The ASEAN Community Vision 2045 underscores the importance of mitigating the risks and impacts arising from climate change and environmental degradation, while advancing a resilient, inclusive, and sustainable ASEAN community. Central to this vision is the recognition that human capital development, innovation, and education systems must be strengthened to respond effectively to these complex challenges. In this regard, the higher education sector plays a pivotal and strategic role. Universities and higher education institutions across ASEAN are key drivers of research, innovation, and regional cooperation. They are uniquely positioned to generate evidence-based solutions that integrate digital technologies with climate action to advance green and digital skills development and to foster multi-stakeholder partnerships that bridge policy, industry, and academia. Moreover, they serve as incubators for future leaders who will navigate and shape ASEAN's sustainable and digital transitions. At the same time, the digital transformation of education systems must be accelerated. This has been strongly reaffirmed since the 2023 ASEAN Leaders Declaration on Digital Transformation of Education, which calls for strengthening digital infrastructure, enhancing digital competencies, and promoting inclusive, equitable, and flexible learning pathways across all levels of education. Advancing this agenda is essential to ensuring that no learner is left behind in an increasingly digital and climate-affected world. In parallel, there is an urgent need to promote research and development of digital solutions for climate action and sustainable global value chains, which entails us sharing knowledge and skills on how digital technologies can address climate change through improved planning, management, and monitoring. Looking ahead, these priorities will be further reinforced under the forthcoming ASEAN Work Plan on Education, which places strong emphasis on strengthening system resilience through digital transformation, as well as enhancing the education sector's capacity to adopt and adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. These include advancing climate-responsive education systems, promote innovation, and ensuring continuity of learning in the face of future disruptions. Together with ongoing efforts in the youth sector, this initiative will be critical to building a resilient, inclusive, and future-ready ASEAN. Distinguished participants, the challenges before us are deeply interconnected, and so too must be our responses. Addressing climate risk, accelerating digital integration, and strengthening resilient value chains require coherent, cross-sectoral, and forward-looking strategies. This symposium provides an important platform to advance these efforts. It offers an opportunity to exchange ideas, share innovations, and identify practical pathways for aligning digital integration, climate action, and resilient value chains in support of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. As we move forward, let us be guided by the principles of integration, inclusivity, and resilience, ensuring that our efforts are coordinated, equitable, and future-oriented. In closing, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizers for your commitment to this important agenda. I'm confident that our discussions will yield valuable insights to help ASEAN advance towards a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient future. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a productive and engaging symposium.
Agradecemos las palabras del señor Kamal Hamamat, jefe de la División de Educación, Juventud, Deportes del Departamento de la Comunidad Sociocultural de la Asociación de Naciones del Sudeste de Asia. Con esto es nuestro discurso inaugural. Invitamos a nuestras autoridades universitarias a subir al presidium con el fin de inaugurar este acto académico. Nos acompañan en el presidium, además del señor Kamal Hamamat de manera digital, la doctora Alicia Girón, directora del Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía. Nos acompaña también el doctor Carlos Uscanga, representante del Grupo Académico de Trabajo del PUEAAO. Y la doctora Lorena Rodríguez, representante del Comité Directivo del Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía. También agradecemos la presencia de las embajadas de ANSEA en México. Toferry Primanda Soetikno, embajador de Indonesia en México, bienvenido. Jamal Sharifuddin Johan, embajador de Malasia en México. Nguyen Van Hai, embajador de Vietnam en México. Y Prapasri Chetsokhul, consejera de Embajada del Reino de Tailandia en México, en representación del embajador. Agradecemos también la presencia de los integrantes del Comité Directivo, Comité Asesor y Grupo Académico de Trabajo del PUEA, que nos acompañan de manera presencial. También agradecemos la presencia virtual de las embajadas de México en los países de ANSEA. Embajador Francisco de la Torre Galindo, embajador de México en la República de Indonesia, Rin Muñoz, embajador de México en la República Socialista de Vietnam, y Daniel Hernández Joseph, embajador de México en la República de Filipinas. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. A continuación, tiene el uso de la palabra el doctor Carlos Uscanga, representante del Grupo Académico de Trabajo del PUEAAO.
Buenos días a todos y a todas. Sean bienvenidas, bienvenidos a este simposio convocado por el Programa Universitario de Estudios de Asia, África y Oceanía de la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México. Me permito extenderles un cordial saludo a los representantes diplomáticos de México en los países del sudeste de Asia, así como los de la región de esa parte del mundo en nuestro país. Es un honor recibirles en esta casa de estudio que a lo largo de los años se ha abocado en el estudio profundo de las regiones que hoy son protagonistas indiscutibles de las transformaciones globales. Desde la UNAM, como universidad pública, tenemos la responsabilidad social de observar, de analizar, dialogar con los procesos de cambio que se desarrollan más allá de nuestras fronteras. La Asociación de Naciones del Sudeste Asiático agrupa hoy a más de 680 millones de personas, con un PIB combinado que supera los 3.6 billones de dólares y un crecimiento sostenido que la coloca, en su conjunto, como la quinta economía del mundo. Sus países miembros representan un conjunto de economías emergentes de mayor dinamismo en el planeta. Comprender las transformaciones del sudeste de Asia no es un ejercicio simplemente de erudición académica, es una necesidad estratégica. La revolución digital, la crisis climática y la reconfiguración de las cadenas globales de valor son procesos que se entrelazan con especial intensidad en esta región y cuyas consecuencias nos alcanzan también a nosotros en México y en América Latina. La UNAM ha apostado desde este programa universitario por construir conocimiento situado, riguroso y de largo aliento sobre Asia, África y Oceanía. Este simposio es expresión de este compromiso, de la convicción que ningún proyecto nacional puede prescindir de una mirada global, plural e informada. Este simposio pone énfasis en el ASEAN, con quienes existen oportunidades concretas para una cooperación profunda y estratégica desde México y América Latina. Por solo mencionar las profundas raíces históricas que nos unen con Filipinas, desde que era una capitanía general del Imperio Español, y la profunda huella que dejó el comercio transpacífico con el Galeón de Manila. Indonesia, la cuarta nación más poblada del mundo y potencia emergente del G20, Indonesia comparte con México la ambición de consolidar economías inclusivas y resilientes. Ambos países han ampliado su diálogo bilateral con un comercio que alcanzó 2.500 millones de dólares en años recientes. La transición energética, la agricultura sostenible y la economía digital son terrenos fértiles para la cooperación. Tailandia, reconocida por su liderazgo en turismo, tecnología y agroindustria, Tailandia es uno de los socios asiáticos con mayor presencia de inversión en México, particularmente en el sector automotriz y electrónico. El intercambio bilateral supera los 3.000 millones de dólares anuales y Tailandia ha constituido, además de una robusta política de innovación agrícola y biotecnología, que también nos puede ofrecer valiosas lecciones para el campo mexicano. Malasia, uno de los principales exportadores mundiales de semiconductores y productores de alta tecnología, Malasia, en efecto, nos ofrece un modelo de integración de cadenas de valor sofisticadas que México estudia con interés creciente, especialmente en el contexto del nearshoring. La cooperación en formación de capital humano, en ciencias, en ingeniería, constituye una área de enorme potencial para ambas naciones. Vietnam, su transformación económica en pocas décadas es una de las historias más notables del siglo XXI. Vietnam ha pasado de ser una economía fundamentalmente agrícola a convertirse en un hub manufacturero y tecnológico de primer nivel, con exportaciones que superan los 3.700 millones de dólares anuales. La experiencia vietnamita de integración productiva, de diplomacia comercial y de reducción de la pobreza ofrece lecciones invaluables para México y América Latina. Los tres grandes temas que articulan este encuentro, integración digital, acción climática y cadenas de valor, no son tópicos aislados. Por ejemplo, la iniciativa de ASEAN sobre economía digital, los ambiciosos compromisos climáticos de sus economías y su papel en la diversificación de cadenas de suministros globales son procesos que impactan el lugar y la visibilidad internacional de este mecanismo regional en momentos de la crisis del multilateralismo. Estoy seguro que este simposio representa un puente tendido desde la UNAM hacia regiones con las que México tiene mucho que conocer y aprender. Felicito a los invitados, ponentes, público en general, que nos puedan también acompañar para profundizar el análisis y proponer nuevas ideas que guíen la relación de México con el sudeste de Asia en las próximas décadas.
Tiene el uso de la palabra la maestra Lorena Rodríguez, integrante del Comité Directivo del Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía.
Muchas gracias. Ya está aprendido. Muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Es un verdadero honor estar en esta inauguración del Simposio Sinergias en ANSEA, Integración Digital, Acción Climática y Cadenas Globales de Valor, organizado por el PUEA, que como ya decía mi querida Vania, pues soy integrante del Comité Académico, bueno, particularmente la Facultad de Economía, y quiero reconocer el esfuerzo del PUEA por articular siempre estos espacios de discusión que son absolutamente necesarios en un tiempo como en el que estamos viviendo. La asociación, quiero agradecer por supuesto a la doctora Alicia Girón. Muchas gracias, Alicia, por convocarnos en esta ocasión. Como siempre, es un gusto estar con ustedes. Muy buenos días también al doctor Carlos Uscanga. Muy buenos días, doctor. Y a los señores embajadores que nos acompañan de manera presencial y también de manera remota. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Para la Universidad Nacional es realmente un privilegio poder contar con estos espacios de diálogo en donde se articula no solo la academia, la representación de distintos países, diplomática, pero también la presencia de nuestras y nuestros estudiantes, de expertos en los temas y expertas en los temas, y también, por supuesto, de nuestras y nuestros académicos, que en un esfuerzo colectivo pues van a estar analizando a lo largo de las sesiones del simposio distintas problemáticas y además desde distintos enfoques acerca de la integración en el sudeste asiático, pero también con objetivos muy específicos. La integración digital, como ya se mencionaba, es uno de los elementos centrales en la región, de los cuales también, por supuesto, desde México, conocer y aprender de la experiencia de lo que ocurre es fundamental. El otro tema que al final de cuentas es fundamental para nuestras distintas regiones, el tema de la acción climática y las cadenas globales de valor, se van a estar articulando en las diferentes ponencias de este simposio, que sin duda nos dejará no solo reflexiones muy importantes para poder comprender no solo la complejidad, sino también la relevancia de una región como esta, en las cuales muchas veces, en el caso de México, estamos muy concentrados en lo que ocurre en la región, particularmente de América del Norte, en el último tiempo de manera concentrada. Sin embargo, es fundamental que desde nuestro país voltemos a ver a los que son otros aliados estratégicos, con los cuales además nos une una historia muy particular en el caso de Filipinas, por ejemplo, una historia de más de 300 años durante la época colonial y que dejaron fuertes lazos, no solo culturales, sino también lazos económicos, lazos políticos. Y finalmente, nuestro país, desde hace ya, desde una historia de larga data, ha tenido una vinculación con la región del sudeste asiático, aunque a veces no parece tan evidente. Por eso quiero resaltar la importancia del trabajo que hace el programa, que además dirige de manera estupenda la doctora Alicia Girón. Ese programa para la universidad es fundamental porque precisamente cuando parece algo que no es tan obvio, ahí está el programa diciendo e insistiendo en la relevancia de estudiar y fortalecer también nuestros vínculos con la región, en este caso en particular del sudeste asiático. Pero bueno, también sabemos que en el programa los estudios sobre África, Oceanía también son fundamentales y además en muchos casos pues abren también brecha a estos estudios en nuestra propia universidad. Así que sin duda este simposio es reflejo de esa larga trayectoria que ha recorrido el programa para consolidar no solo a estas regiones en el ámbito de estudio de las diferentes disciplinas dentro de nuestra universidad, sino que definitivamente nos abre la posibilidad para seguir investigando y para seguir además estrechando lazos en el futuro. Muchísimas gracias y estoy segura de que este simposio será todo un éxito y que se continuarán, por supuesto, los esfuerzos para seguir profundizando en estos temas tan importantes. Muchas gracias.
Tiene el uso de la palabra con el fin de dar palabras de bienvenida y la declaratoria inaugural la doctora Alicia Girón, directora del Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía. Adelante, doctora Girón.
Muchas gracias, maestra Vania de la Vega Chiota, secretaria académica de nuestro programa. Estimados embajadores de México en ANSEA y embajadores de ANSEA en nuestro país, es un privilegio estar aquí en esta mesa acompañada por el decano del programa, que es el doctor Carlos Uscanga, y la maestra Lorena Rodríguez, directora de la Facultad de Economía, colegas investigadores, investigadoras, estudiantes y distinguidos asistentes. Es para mí un honor este espacio de reflexión académica que resulta fundamental para comprender las profundas reconfiguraciones de la economía política internacional. Desde nuestro quehacer universitario, enfocado permanentemente en los estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía, resulta ineludible analizar con detenimiento cómo nuestras economías del sur global se insertan en un mundo fragmentado, marcado por tensiones geopolíticas y una policrisis sistémica que desafía nuestros paradigmas teóricos. Como hemos podido constatar de primera mano en nuestra reciente misión académica al Indo-Pacífico, el sudeste asiático y al país, como ha dicho el doctor Uscanga, Indonesia, que tiene una población de 280 millones de habitantes y una capital de 40 millones, Yakarta. Esta región no solo actúa como un robusto motor de crecimiento económico frente a la actual volatilidad global, sino que se ha consolidado definitivamente como el epicentro donde se están redefiniendo las reglas de la geoeconomía. La Asociación de Naciones del Sudeste Asiático, ANSEAN, está consolidando su arquitectura institucional, ha configurado un bloque regional de 11 países que negocia, equilibra y en muchas ocasiones marca la pauta frente a grandes potencias como China y Estados Unidos. Para dimensionar adecuadamente la enorme relevancia de esta región, debemos observar los datos macroeconómicos más recientes. De acuerdo al World Economic Outlook de este mes de abril de 2026, publicado por el Fondo Monetario Internacional, el crecimiento global enfrenta pruebas sumamente severas, proyectándose en un nivel moderado del 3.1%. En marcado contraste, el pronóstico del crecimiento del Producto Interno Bruto para el bloque ASEAN 5 se sitúa en un sólido y resiliente 4.1%. Al desagregar estas cifras, observamos trayectorias verdaderamente notables. Filipinas lidera la expansión con un vigoroso 6.1%, seguido muy de cerca por Vietnam con un 5.6%, Indonesia consolida su papel estratégico con un avance sostenido del 5%, mientras que economías más maduras como Singapur y Tailandia avanzan a un ritmo estable del 2.5%. No obstante, este innegable dinamismo productivo convive cotidianamente con un complejo panorama financiero y fiscal que como analistas sociales no podemos ignorar. Se pronostica que la deuda bruta del gobierno general en la región alcance el 73% del PIB regional, con una recaudación promedio del 17.6%, que debe hacer frente a presiones de gasto del orden del 19.5%. Esta patente fragilidad financiera, sumado a los altos costos del servicio de la deuda externa, impacta indirectamente en las esferas de la reproducción social y la provisión de servicios públicos fundamentales. El desarrollo económico real debe medirse indefectiblemente por el bienestar de la población. En este sentido crítico, el Global Gender Gap Report, o sea, el informe de las brechas de género del Foro Económico de Davos, nos revela contrastes profundos dentro del bloque. Mientras que Filipinas destaca logrando el 20º lugar a nivel mundial en paridad de género, y naciones como Singapur y Tailandia se posicionan en los primeros lugares en aprovechamiento académico y acceso equitativo a la educación, Por otro lado, persisten formidables retos estructurales en materia de salud, supervivencia y equidad laboral en diversas zonas de Asia. Afrontar y erradicar estas brechas históricas depende de la capacidad que tengan los estados para sostener el gasto público social. Datos del Banco Mundial subrayan los compromisos asumidos por Singapur, Vietnam e Indonesia en el sector salud, así como el liderazgo regional de Singapur, Malasia y Tailandia en inversión educativa, elementos vitales para fortalecer el tejido social e impulsar un bienestar sostenible. Es precisamente en este intrincado y fascinante contexto macroeconómico, comercial y social donde convergen magistralmente los tres grandes ejes que estructuran nuestro coloquio. El primer eje temático es la innovación y gobernanza, estrategias para el desarrollo sostenible y la tecnología. La asimilación tecnológica representa la nueva frontera ineludible de la competitividad, pero la manifiesta falta de gobernanza global amenaza con fragmentar los mercados emergentes y profundizar las desigualdades. Una inserción exitosa requiere construir marcos institucionales robustos que faciliten desde sistemas de pagos transfronterizos hasta la regulación ética de la innovación técnica. Acuerdos recientes que involucran a economías de la Alianza del Pacífico con naciones como Singapur, Brunei y Vietnam demuestran que la economía digital está en el centro neurálgico de las negociaciones comerciales contemporáneas, buscando que la digitalización democratice el acceso y logre evitar la concentración asimétrica del poder corporativo. El segundo eje de discusión aborda el estado de las cadenas globales de valor. Era trabajar el programa, pero definitivamente era hacer un análisis no solamente económico, sino también financiera de estos países, y desgraciadamente yo creo que tenemos muchos retos, sobre todo cuando comparamos las cifras de ANSEAN con México, cuando comparamos el crecimiento que tiene ANSEAN, y México estaba en 0.6, el último informe lo ponen en 1, alcanzando cerca del 1, el reporte mundial del Fondo Monetario Internacional, o sea, hace 2 semanas acaba de ser la reunión de primavera del Fondo y del Banco Mundial, y ahí parece que México ya va creciendo, pero lo interesante es ver cómo México, siendo frontera de un país supuestamente muy dinámico, cómo hay un retroceso enorme frente a países que realmente salieron de una reconstrucción y de un coloniaje apenas hace menos de medio siglo, cuando empiezan a tener sus primeras independencias, y nosotros ya cumplimos 200 años de independencia. Por el otro lado, definitivamente, el haber estado en Indonesia, sí quisiera comentar y también compartir con ustedes. El día de ayer se inició un curso sobre Oceanía, y la coordinadora de este curso, la doctora Mónica Velasco, invitó a un profesor a explicarnos la importancia de las islas del Pacífico. ¿Cuál es la importancia de estas islas que tienen grandes recursos naturales y que definitivamente son parte de los recursos para la economía digital, para el cambio climático, y por ello también debemos entender la importancia del conflicto bélico que hay en estos momentos? Filipinas recibe el 90% del petróleo del Medio Oriente, y lamentablemente el cierre del estrecho de Hormuz y el otro cierre de Bab el-Mandeb, espero haberlo dicho bien, pues realmente está afectando no solamente a toda la zona del Indo-Pacífico, principalmente a estos países del sudeste asiático. Por supuesto, esto apunta directamente a China, Japón y Corea, y hay una situación que se empieza a reflejar en el aumento de los viajes en avión y también las políticas que están utilizando para disminuir el uso de la gasolina. Cuando salimos, la maestra Vania de la Vega Chiota y la que habla, simplemente ya se habían ido un día a la semana, estaban reduciendo un día a la semana para trabajar en casa. Entonces, Australia también está siendo afectado por pues, conflicto bélico, pero lo más interesante es que tuvimos una exposición en la Universidad de Padjeraban en Bandung, y allí la importancia fue demostrar las ganancias que están teniendo BlackRock, Vanguard y otros inversionistas institucionales en las empresas como Lockheed y las Boeing, que son empresas que no solamente conocemos los Boeing, ¿no? Pero son empresas que están metidas en los armamentos. Entonces, si nosotros viéramos, por ejemplo, las altas y bajas de los precios del petróleo, parecería ser un juego que constantemente se da precisamente por las declaraciones de un personaje que un día dice que va a acabar con una civilización o que los va a regresar a la historia de piedra. Entonces, estas idas y venidas de este personaje definitivamente lo que hacen son grandes ganancias de los inversionistas institucionales, y esas ganancias se marcan en el mercado de valores. Entonces, de ahí que los países de ASEAN y principalmente lo que es el Indo-Pacífico cobra una gran importancia, y estoy segura que en las siguientes pláticas pues esto se va a dar a conocer. Entonces, por lo tanto, le damos la palabra aquí al embajador de Filipinas.
Muchas gracias, doctora Alicia Girón. Le damos la más cordial bienvenida al excelentísimo señor Arvin de León, que además de ser el embajador de la República de Filipinas en México, ostenta la presidencia del Comité de la ANSEA en México. Agradecemos su presencia y todas las facilidades para la realización de este acto. Tiene usted el uso de la palabra.
Está bien. Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Buenos días a todos. Estamos un poco más tarde, pero mucho tráfico, pero bueno, estamos aquí.
Como en Manila.
Manila es peor.
Sí.
Por eso no es tan estresante para nosotros, solo el asunto de tiempo. Bueno, señor Miguel Armando López Leiva, vicepresidente de Humanidades de UNAM, señor Armando Sánchez, director del Instituto de Investigaciones Económicas de UNAM, señora Alicia Girón, directora del Programa Universitario de Estudios en Asia, África y Oceanía de UNAM, colegas de las embajadas de la ANSEA en México, algunos son tardes también, amigos, estudiantes, damas y caballeros, muy buenos días a cada uno de ustedes. La invitación para hablar el día de hoy llega en un momento oportuno, en el cual las sinergias de todo tipo se han convertido en una parte intrínseca de nuestro trabajo como representantes de nuestros respectivos países. El simposio de hoy, organizado por el Programa Universitario de Estudios sobre Asia, África y Oceanía de la Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México, en colaboración con el Instituto de Investigaciones Económicas, encausa sus raíces hacia el corazón de la ANSEA, lo cual fomenta la construcción de comunidad. Cuando se construye una comunidad, todos trabajan juntos, forjando colaboraciones y compromisos en interacciones llenas de significado. Al igual que la ANSEA en este momento crucial de su historia, en especial mientras Filipinas funge como su presidente, con el tema Navegando nuestro futuro juntos. Este año, Filipinas apunta hacia una nueva era de integración y cooperación regional. Puede que para un ojo sin entrenamiento, la integración digital, el cambio climático y la cadena de valor mundial sean diferentes, pero el espíritu de desarrollo comunitario, un sello de la entidad de la ANSEA, los mantiene unidos. El simposio de hoy esclarecer las sinergias entre dos o más de estos conceptos. Nuestra región se ha mantenido en la primera línea de la sinergia desde el 2015, cuando la comunidad de la ANSEA estableció la integración de las entonces 10 naciones del sudeste asiático, enfocadas en promover la paz, la estabilidad y la seguridad. Actualmente traemos a Timor Oriental, Timor-Leste, a este frente, como la reciente incorporación a la ANSEA. Somos 11 ahora. La comunidad de la ANSEA se sustenta de 3 pilares: seguridad política, económica y sociocultural, los cuales propiciarán un mercado único y competitivo. Tenemos la población de, creo que es 700 millones. Es una población. Somos el quinto más grande, la quinta más grande economía en el mundo ahora. Y al igual que una región socialmente responsable y orientada hacia las personas. A lo largo del proceso de creación de comunidad, encontramos un número creciente de ideas y problemas por abordar. La clave para descubrir y desenredar estos problemas es darse cuenta de que no son independientes entre ellos. La plática de hoy se enfoca en examinar cómo es que la transformación digital puede mejorar la mitigación climática y la adaptación de esfuerzos en el sudeste de Asia, a la par que fortalece la resiliencia de las cadenas de valor mundiales y evalúa el progreso hacia las metas de desarrollo sustentable mediante una cooperación más inclusiva y sustentable con la ANSEA. Me honra dirigir a las misiones de la ANSEA en México en su conversación durante la sesión inaugural. Como una de las economías de más rápido crecimiento, no sé, con los acontecimientos en Medio Oriente ahora, reconocida a nivel mundial, la ANSEA abraza el potencial de transformación de las tecnologías digitales en este panorama, que siempre está cambiando. Una vez más, quisiera agradecerles por recibirnos en su maravillosa institución. Espero que todos tengamos una valiosa conversación. Muchísimas gracias.
Esta reunión de nuestros embajadores que están aquí con nosotros y la idea es tener una sesión muy dinámica en base a preguntas que les voy a ir haciendo. Y se les ha pedido que en 3 minutos contesten. So, I'm sorry, but that's the instruction that my boss has given to me, Miss Vania. Well, so welcome Arvin de León, Ambassador of the Republic of the Philippines to Mexico. Toferry Primanda Soetikno, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to Mexico. Thank you very much. Jamal Sharifuddin Joan, Ambassador of Malaysia to Mexico. Thank you very much. And Nguyen Van Hai, Ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam to Mexico. Thank you. And Prapasi Chesongkul, Counselor of the Kingdom of Thailand to Mexico. Thank you very much. Well, I will ask you. So I think I know that you have this. No, you know your homework. Okay. Well, so as ASEAN approached its 6th decade since its founding in 1967 under the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, how should the region redefine its model of regionalism to remain cohesive amid geopolitical fragmentation, technological competition, and climate urgency? So, Ambassador Arvin?
Sure. Since the question is in English, then I will answer in English.
Yes.
It's better for me. I can speak better in English though. But anyway, ASEAN is already redefining its regionalism because, you know, we are the chair of ASEAN now, and our theme is navigating our future together. And this theme reflects a very powerful idea because despite all the challenges in this world, we remain very cohesive as a grouping. And this is the good thing about ASEAN. One example of this is that with the recent events in the Middle East, we are actually had a statement asking both parties, well, at least the United States and Iran, to actually talk about this, and even praising Pakistan for being the mediator in these talks. Another example would be the Philippines' candidature in the UNSC for 2027 and 2028. All of the countries in ASEAN have actually endorsed our bid. And this speaks well because UNSC, as we all know, is a very powerful body in the United Nations. Well, that's a question that we need to actually resolve. But you see, we're very united as a grouping. So the fact that all ASEAN countries have endorsed the candidature, it shows how cohesive we are as a group. So that's it for me. The others would be able to explain better. Thank you.
Toferry, Primanda, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. I think for me, the answer would be in 3 minutes, ASEAN should continue to be the bright spot in the turbulent world, right? So we have been, one of the most peaceful region in the last 50 years after last, Vietnam War, 1975, and you can see around now in the world with the Middle East, Europe with the Ukraine war, Africa, several conflicts. I think not too bad in Southeast Asia. We maintain our habit of dialogue and consultation, and we have been successfully to continue to be one of the most peaceful region and stable region in the world. And second thing, we have to be to continue, as a bright spot in the slow growth global economy. Now, global economy is predicted to reach 3.1% last IMF spring meeting. But ASEAN, the growth could be even more. We can, achieve up to around 5%, in this, low growth at a time actually. So I think ASEAN has been one of the highest growth in the last, I think 20 years. So we have been reaching like 5% in the last 20 years, and we are predicted also, could grow at the 5% level or even more. I think it is one of the highest in the world. If we compare with Mexico last year, Mexico grew at the rate of 0.8%, and this year Mexico will grow at the rate of 1.6 or 7%. So ASEAN, if ASEAN can grow at the rate of around 5%, then it will be, very relevant to the world in general. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Alicia, Girón, thank you for hosting us. The question is basically asking, how should the region redefine its model of regionalism? We've been around for almost 60 years, so it's kind of difficult to explain how we can do this in a time span of 3 minutes. Basically, we have to know what the model we're talking about. We began in 1967. We had the Bangkok Declaration, we had the Charter of the UN, and we have built the ASEAN community in 2015. We have all the tools necessary to face extremely fragmented geopolitical world. ASEAN is already there. We have future strategic plans, such as the Forging Ahead Together for 2025, and we adopted a new one, Our Shared Future for 2045. So we have the necessary tools. When we built this strategy document, it was already a fragmented world. It's always been a fragmented world. So we know how to face it as a unit of 11 countries now. So I think we will continue to remain cohesive, and we have the necessary tools to face a fragmented world. When it comes to technological competition and climate agency, well, we've had already various areas. We have to understand how ASEAN works. We have 1,500 meetings per year. So we discuss on everything under the three pillars, under political and the economy, and the social, cultural, digital economy, climate change, sports, culture, and you name it. Everything is discussed, 1,500 meetings per year. And so we meet each other on a daily basis. We come up with new programs, new initiatives. Right now, we're working on the ASEAN Digital Economic Framework Agreement, which will come up with a unified digital market and on AI and data privacy. We're also looking at the major projects such as the ASEAN Power Grid that would basically link all the power. And this is especially important now, especially what's happened in the Middle East with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, basically, what we're saying that we're going to make it into more of energy security rather than being subject to the price fluctuations of oil and coal. So these are some of the things that we're looking at, and hopefully this answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ms. Preparatory from Thailand.
Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, the director of the program, for inviting us to this panel. And to the first question, as Ambassador Arvin has already mentioned, that actually in its sixth decade, ASEAN has already redefined its regionalism. And we believe that amidst the current global uncertainties, ASEAN should remain guided by the region's long-term vision to remain relevant, unified, and central in the rapid changing geopolitical and economic landscape, strengthening its economic and social resilience as well. By this, I would like to comment that by adhering to the ASEAN centrality, which will allow us as a region to engage all the stakeholders in this conflicting world, and it will allow us also to uphold to the rule-based international system and converting ASEAN into a bridge builder in this very fragile international system. And by strengthening its economic resilience, it will help ASEAN countries to reduce the vulnerability to the external shocks, and at the same time integrate our economy to the current economic also fragile system. And by constructing the social resilience, having its people at the center of our policies, so that we can respond to the non-traditional threats that we have experienced, the pandemic, or even the online scams that Thailand has been advocating for the combating of this emerging.
So I wish that I didn't have to answer this question. Asking ASEAN to redefine its modern regionalism is some sort of like asking the Mexican to choose hamburgers instead of tacos. After nearly 60 years since its founding, ASEAN has been quite successful with its unique way of regionalism. Of course, in the new context of global geopolitics, rapid change of technology, and climate urgency, ASEAN should adapt itself to remain cohesive and successful. And in this regard, I would say there are three directions worth considering. First of all, ASEAN must avoid becoming a proxy for external rivalries and maintain its central role in regional diplomacy through strengthening its inclusive platforms, promoting a rule-based regional order with a stronger commitment to international law, and encouraging unified positions from all ASEAN members on major international issues. Secondly, ASEAN should gradually move from being mainly a platform for dialogue to also shaping rules and standards, especially in areas like digital governance and green standards. ASEAN should contribute more actively to setting the rules. Otherwise, ASEAN may simply end up with adapting to rules made elsewhere. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, ASEAN needs to strengthen its internal cohesion. In today's complex world, ASEAN catchword unity in diversity becomes even more critical. This means not only maintaining political solidarity, but also improving policy coordination, narrowing development gaps, promoting ASEAN identity through people-to-people exchanges, so that ASEAN can respond more effectively to share the challenge. So overall, I would say that ASEAN does not need to reinvent itself completely, but it does need to evolve to be more flexible, more proactively, and more cohesive. And if it succeeds, ASEAN can remain not only a stable region, but also an increasingly important actor in the broader Indo-Pacific region. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Well, the next question is, how can ASEAN balance digital sovereignty with the need to remain integrated into global digital value chains dominated by major powers? So, Ambassador Arvin.
Yes, we have very big words here, digital sovereignty, all these things. I mean, they're very big words, but they're very, very, very relevant. Perhaps it's, maybe I encourage everyone to look at digital sovereignty in more practical terms, rather than, saying that instead of strict data control or isolation, perhaps sovereignty can mean setting rules on cybersecurity and promote an environment of healthy competition in the digital space. I mean, economic opportunities in the digital economy abound in Southeast Asia. In fact, the fastest growing center for data hubs are in Southeast Asia, led by Singapore and Malaysia. And then the rest of the countries actually follow. But the countries that you see here are actually the major data hub centers in the world. So the Philippines digital economy is very important because about more than 10% of our people depend on the digital economy, and that's about 8.5% of our economy. So it's very, very important. And I think it's very significant for me to say before you that within ASEAN, we're actually negotiating an agreement on digital economic framework. So it's very important for us to actually finish the negotiations on this agreement, because that would actually set the tone for the region in terms of cooperating. Because of course, there are global powers, but for us individually, we are doing, can you imagine, we're doing separate individual efforts, but if we come together, then that's a great balancing power against the so-called superpowers in the digital economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Toferry, Primanda.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I think it's hard to define digital sovereignty in this fragmented world. I'm talking about the control of the big power. Now, big powers, US and China, control the digital technology, and then they divide even the digital world, whether we want to follow US system or we want to follow Chinese system, 5G of the US system and 5G in China, chips made in US or chips made in China. And there is, if we see choke point in Hormuz Strait of Hormuz, but we have also the choke point here in the chip producer, because in the extreme ultraviolet lithogram, 100% of it actually that will supply the use of the advanced chip is made by the ASML in Netherlands or TSMC in Taiwan, and they made almost 90% of the advanced chip in the world. So this is really a big problem for us. So I'm not. It's hard to say. How can we become the sovereign digital country? Of course, we have to make operation. So I think by being open, by being open economy, we have good relation with US, we have good relation with China, with all major powers. Then I think we can become part of the global supply chain in the digital technology. And I've seen, for example, I've come once to Tijuana. There's one company, Infineon, in Tijuana that made chip there, and then they send to Batam, they send to Malaysia, and also they have also the factory in in Philippines, in Manila, in Thailand. So we are part of the global supply chain of the digital technology because of what? Because we are open, because we are an open, we continue as an open economy. I think this is the key. As long as we are open, we serve as an open economy, then of course, sovereignty in the digital technology is one thing, but we can tap the digital technology in not only one big power, but also in the other big power. Thank you, Alicia.
Right, thank you. First, let's start with the idea of sovereignty, which I don't believe is isolation. Basically, sovereignty for ASEAN in the 21st century comes from collective leverage. That is, we all can work together as one. This comes from, like mentioned by Ambassador Arvin, ASEAN Digital Economic Framework Agreement. We aren't just harmonizing rules, but we're building a digital single market. This allows us to negotiate with tech giants as from a position of strength rather than from 11 separate smaller voices. Just for instance, in Malaysia, we are receiving investments not only for NVIDIA and Microsoft, but also from Infineon from Germany, SMIC from China, TSMC from Taiwan. So we're getting all, we're taking advantage of all. Therefore, for payment systems to AI standard, our system will not be just locked into one country's tech stack. We can champion open source architectures and use business using hardware from the East and software from the West. And this will allow our operating system to remain uniquely Southeast Asian. So apart from that, we also try to take advantage. We're not just a recipient of technology and whether it's value chains, digital value chains, but we want to be a player itself. That's why we continue to encourage global powers to move their R&D and high-end processing into our region, and thus creating a high-skilled jobs for the youth, rather than just acting as a passive consumer market. And our ultimate goal is to be digitally non-aligned, but globally indispensable. And I think we're on the right track to achieve that. Thank you.
And that's for nitrogen phosphide.
For me, I think this is a very timely question. I must admit that ASEAN is facing a difficult trade-off. On the one hand, ASEAN governments need to protect data, infrastructure, and cybersecurity, but at the same time, no economy can grow by staying disconnected from global digital networks. So I think ASEAN should approach this matter by pragmatism. Firstly, ASEAN needs a certain level of common digital standards. If each member has completely different rules on data protection or cross-border data flows, it creates a fragmentation within the group, making it harder for businesses to operate and reducing ASEAN's attractiveness as a digital market. Secondly, digital sovereignty is not only about regulation, but also about capability. ASEAN should invest more in infrastructure, human resources, and innovation ecosystems. Otherwise, even with strong regulations, ASEAN must still depend heavily on external technologies. And in this regard, ASEAN should also create regional innovation hubs to enhance research collaboration and accelerate the development of new technologies like AI or green tech. Thirdly, ASEAN should remain open and outward-looking, but in a way to achieve the strategic autonomy, namely being part of the global system, but on terms that protect our citizens' data, privacy, and national security. ASEAN should also pursue multi-alignment with its major partners in technology to avoid being dependency on one power. Currently, ASEAN has a set of instruments. At the strategic level, the ASEAN Digital Master Plan 2030 sets the overall direction towards an inclusive, trusted, and innovative digital community. At the framework level, the ASEAN Framework on Digital Data Governance and the ASEAN Data Management Framework have aligned regional approaches. They are supported by practical tools like the ASEAN Cybersecurity Cooperation Strategy, and now ASEAN is also moving towards a more comprehensive and binding framework through the Digital Economic Framework Agreement aimed at harmonizing rules on payments, data, and new technologies, and creating a unified market for digital goods, services, and investments. I think the key message here is a right mix of openness and resilience, that is, asserting control and autonomy over critical assets of the digital economy, while leveraging international cooperation for growth and competitiveness. By getting this balance right, ASEAN can position itself as a dynamic and trusted hub in the global digital economy. Thank you.
With the word digital sovereignty, I would say that it should means that ASEAN is encouraged to build up its own capacity in the digital world, so that they can become a more viable actors and can compete with the probably major powers in a more confident term. And by that, I think it is important for ASEAN to build up a kind of interoperable digital payments platforms, trusted data governance, as well as the well-equipped infrastructure, so that a more integrated ASEAN digital market can be created. And in order to be competitive in this environment, I think regional coherence is important, and that is why the agreement of the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement that all the ambassadors has already mentioned is crucial for us. It would not only provide the common and enabling rules for secure cross-border flows, but it will also allowing ASEAN countries to shape its own digital future. And in order to achieve this, one of the most important factors would be the inclusiveness of all the process of the digital transformations that will allow not only big enterprise or big countries to fulfill its goal, but also take into account the interest and benefits for the small and medium enterprise or even families in rural areas of our countries. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I have another question, and this will be the last one, is to what extent can ASEAN develop a coordinated regional energy transition strategy, particularly regarding renewable grids, carbon markets, and green finance? Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you. I think this is the most relevant question of them all with what's happening around the world right now. I mean, personally, as a Filipino, we're most affected by what's happening in the Middle East. We're actually the first country to declare a national state of energy emergency. And our people are really suffering right now. And even us, just today, if I can share it, we've received instructions from Manila to actually save 20% of our budget and actually give it back to the national government, because a lot of people actually need support in our country right now. But definitely, when in terms of ASEAN, we've already developing this regional framework. For 2026 up to 2030, we have an ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation, and it sets regional targets such as, setting 30% of supply as renewable energy. And it also defines into 7 areas. One of them is the ASEAN Power Grid. They're actually the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation has 7 areas. One of them is the ASEAN Power Grid, which actually aims to connect all ASEAN countries into one single electric network. And the plan is by 2045, we're one single electricity network. There's also this other areas of oil and gas connectivity, security and sustainability, very important, clean coal transformation, energy efficiency and conservation, renewable energy, regional energy policy and planning, and civilian nuclear energy, which I think is also important. Time to actually rethink our policies on nuclear energy. In terms of green finance, ASEAN is actively scaling this green finance, but mainly through regional coordination and external partnerships. So we're actually slowly developing in that area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Toferry.
Okay, yes. I think now climate is not the topic of the day. Now more, attention of people headlines are about wars, geopolitical tension, competition between China and US, for example. So while at the same time we are facing the existential threat of the climate change, it is still there. It's close to us. The second thing I want to say that sadly we have the misallocation of resources. You can imagine now we have the $2.2 trillion of defense budget. Even US asked for next year $1.5 trillion for next year, right? So $2.2 trillion last year or 2 years ago. You compare with the ODA of the OECD countries to the world, just less than 10% of it. And when countries in the UNFCCC ask for $100 billion from developed countries to developing countries to help developing countries reduce the emission, and it is really hard to achieve the $100 billion. You can imagine the context. For $100 billion can be seen as so big, but if you compare $100 billion with $2.2 trillion, it's so small, just 5%, less than 5% of the budget that is needed by developing countries at that time. Yeah, but then now I think this is the context. But what is then ASEAN role here? ASEAN, by as I mentioned at the beginning, serving as one of the most peaceful region, most prosperous region. So we can still allocate of our budget to cope with the climate change. I think this is one. On the technicalities, of course, we have the mechanism. Mechanisms are there, and not only in terms of at the ASEAN level, regional level, but national level. We have also allocated some of the budget to it. I think this is I can share with you. At the global level, we have the challenges, but at the regional level, since we have the benefit as a peaceful region and also one of the most prosperous regions, so then we still can allocate certain resources to cope with the climate change. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ambassador Jamal.
Right. Thank you. Well, I think to kick things off regarding renewable grids, I would like to repeat what Ambassador Arvin said regarding the ASEAN power grid. And that is the cornerstone of our strategy in Southeast Asia right now. We're moving from a patchwork of bilateral deals to a truly integrated regional electron superhighway. So this is the first thing we want. The goal is to make the grid technology agnostic by linking our diverse resources from Malaysia and Thailand's hydropower to Vietnam's wind turbine. We hope to create a buffer against global price shocks, the one that we're experiencing now because of the war in the Middle East. Essentially, we are trading energy for security. So the second question regarding carbon markets, well, it's difficult and we cannot afford a fragmented landscape. We're going to have 11 different sets of rules for carbon pricing, and we are going to see carbon leakage and investor confusion. Therefore, consequently, we're pushing for an ASEAN carbon framework. And this will hopefully, basically, a reforestation project in one area can offset an industrial hub in another member state. So that will be ideal for us. And finally, when it comes to green finance, well, what is required is roughly 1.3 trillion by 2050, which is a huge amount. So basically, we have to be smart in how we attract capital, and therefore we are operationalizing the ASEAN taxonomy. Basically, it is we are giving global investors a common dictionary on what constitutes green investment. Now, all this must be done justly and inclusively. And we don't want just to buy solar panels from China but we want to be part of the supply chain that produces them here in Southeast Asia. So we're looking to turn climate urgency into a massive job creation engine for the youth as well. But we have to be realistic about this energy trilemma, balancing security, affordability, and sustainability. We're not going to flip the switch and straight away do away with all our coal and oil in terms of energy production. But what it requires is really the willingness to integrate among the 11 member states of ASEAN, and hopefully we're going towards that. Thank you.
Ambassador.
I think energy transition is one of the defining challenges of our time. Within ASEAN, some members still depend heavily on fossil fuels, while others are moving faster into renewables. And that is why ASEAN responds to energy transition in flexible ways. As Ambassador Arvin also mentioned that ASEAN has some initiatives like ASEAN Power Grid and ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation. I would like to add one more, that ASEAN also has ASEAN Renewable Energy Long-Term Roadmap to bridge ambition and action. And at present, concrete progress is underway. For example, hydropower from Laos is being exported to neighboring countries. However, only half of the 18 priority cross-border interconnections are in place. Here, the financing is a big hurdle. And at the same time, ASEAN countries are moving forward with carbon market mechanisms. ASEAN has developed a framework for its renewable energy certificates to unlock regional trading in this field. However, carbon market is only at the beginning and mainly focused on carbon capture. The most urgent need now is a necessary transition from coal, but as Ambassador Jamans also mentioned, this requires immense investment. So financing remains a key factor. ASEAN is now mobilizing green finance by expanding green bonds, developing the ASEAN Common Taxonomy, and improving regulations to attract private capital. In this regard, partnerships with international initiatives such as the Just Energy Transition Partnership are also helping, bringing in additional funds, technology, and expertise. However, key obstacles remain. The cost of capital for renewables is still too high. So to sum up, I think ASEAN can develop a highly coordinated strategy. It also has blueprints, tools, and targets. So the next phase must be moving from signing agreements to managing the implementation with a new sense of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Miss Prasparasis.
So as the ambassadors already mentioned about all the initiatives like the 2026-2030 ASEAN Plan on Action for Energy Cooperation, the ASEAN Power Grid, so on and so forth. All these initiatives and projects reflect the intention and the commitment of all the ASEAN countries to carry out the ASEAN the energy transition in our region for a more sustainable energy sector in ASEAN. But we have to accept that the fact is that like the ambassador of Vietnam stressed the point of the difference in all of the energy mix, development levels, as well as regulatory readiness in our countries, the challenge. Still, I reiterate that all the ASEAN members have reaffirmed their commitment in trying to comply and achieve the plan of actions and all the objectives and the goals in order to convert our region into a greener one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have just finished on time. Thank you. Congratulations. But the lesson that you give me is that ASEAN is an example for Mexico by the integration that you are having and the way that you are constructing a new model of a new economic model, especially that you are between China and USA. The problem of Mexico is very different. We are just in our border is where our neighbor is a strong man, and well, he's a little crazy. But I think some of the things that we haven't learned is for one very important, for example, the panels, the solar panels. Now, the 90% of the solar panels are Chinese, and maybe we haven't used. And now you have. Now, how are you going to do in this energy crisis? So I think we will continue. I think we can have many ideas on how is doing ASEAN. And dear ambassadors, thank you very much. Thank you very much to be here in the University Studies program of Asia, Africa, and Oceania, and also in the Economic Research Institute host this session. And well, thank you very much.